Hi, yes, and today we are going to look at how the Solo Profits header was actually created. This was asked for a little while ago by Rex, so thanks for that, Rex. Sorry it's taken a wee while for me to get this put together, but today we're going to get this one tied down. So by the end of this little session, everyone will know exactly how to create this style of logo. Sorry, this style of header. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. Okay, now as you can see, we've opened up Photoshop. Now I'm actually working on a Mac today, but it doesn't matter whether you're working on Mac or PC, it's exactly the same process in Photoshop. I don't know whether actually Photoshop Elements will do this, I'm sure it will, but it's fairly basic stuff. There's nothing really too complicated about it. Okay, so the actual header itself, well, there's the file up at the top of the screen here. Now it consists of quite a few elements. We'll create each element separately, and then we'll actually introduce each element to its own layer, and that will actually give you the finished product. If you're a little bit rocky on layers, if you've never worked on layers before, don't worry, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so first thing to do is to create the base document. Actually, I've just thought, before we do that, can I just point out this particular item here, which is, if you look around the sides of this document here, you'll see there's a sort of a white part there, and then there's a grey part. Now that is actually part of the actual image file, and that is well, actually I'll switch that on and off for you so you can see what happens here, because this is actually the, you see that, yeah, it's gone off and back on again. I'll just switch it on that layer. You see it's gone back on again. Now that is part of, it's a mask basically, which once you've actually done the final image will fit straight into the WordPress default theme, and you won't be able to see any of the joins. It looks a bit lopsided at the moment, but believe me, once you've done it, it will go in no problem. Okay, so let's get started and we'll get that base document sorted out. Okay, first things first, we need to create our new document in Photoshop. So we go to File, New, and then down to the width. Now the width has to be 760. I know it already is 760 on this particular occasion, and that's because I actually created a document earlier just to test the system through before we went ahead with the video. Likewise, the height has to be 200, so you would fill that in as well, 200. Resolution 72 dots per inch, and the name of the file would be header01, and we OK that, and the document pops up at the top of the screen there. Now to view that correctly, if we go to View, Fit on Screen, there we go, and basically that's the document ready to work on. Right, now the next stage is to go up to File, New. We're actually going to create a new document now, which will be the basis of the background for our previous document. So as you can see, it's 32 by 32 pixels. That's the size that we need. The reason that that is showing us 32 by 32 is because I created a small document as a test earlier on, and so it's defaulted to that size. So if yours isn't actually 32 by 32, then just type that in. That's how big the document will be when it's created. The name will be background 01, we'll call that. Okay, that, and there we have a little diddy background there, you can see it. Just drag it out of the way so we can see what we're working on. The next step is to put in the actual text for the background, and this we do by going to the text tool, which is this one, that T, as you can see there. Click on that and then go down to the document itself, one click, and what will happen is that Photoshop will create another layer. If you remember layers, we've got our background here, and then we've got the text layer there. So whatever we type in will actually live on this layer here. Okay, so we'll just go back up to the top there, and we'll click, we shall call it our blog. I think is probably a good starting point. Now it can be either lowercase, uppercase, or a mix, whichever way you prefer, or we'll just stick with that for the moment. Okay, so that's our blog. As you can see, if we go at the top, it's 12 point, which is just about right anyway. That's fine for that particular size. And the distance, the line distance, I would say is probably about right as well. It's actually on auto, so we're okay with that. So we'll just leave it at that for the moment. We'll accept that by clicking on the check tool or the checkbox at the top of the screen, and then move back to the layer itself. Now I've just clicked on the selection tool here because we're now going to move the text itself into the center of the box. And how we do that is there are 2 or 3 ways of doing it. The easiest thing to do is just click on background, go back to the layers palette, of course, click on background, and then move to this box here, the text layer, on the text layer, and just click there and you see there's a sort of a link appears. Now basically that means that whatever happens on this layer will happen in relation to this other layer. Now I hope I'm not getting too technical here. It's not meant to be, don't worry about it. All it means is that it will actually, the 2 layers are working in tandem, as it were. We move back to the top of the screen, we'll click on this center alignment button there. As you can see, that's centered itself, and likewise the vertical center alignment, and there the text is actually bang in the middle of the little document there. Now as you can see, the text as well is left aligned. We want it to be central, so we're back to the text tool, just click that up to the top of the screen, and you can see there's the text alignment tools. Just click on there, and that's, sorry, we need to highlight the text first. Back up the top, click there, and that will actually centers the text. We'll accept that. Now it's actually moved out of the box there slightly, so again we'll go to the selection tool, click on there, click on the background, that and that. Okay, it's back in the center. We'll just go back down to the layers palette, unclick the lock so that this disengages that layer from that layer. Click on the text layer because that's the one that we want to work on now directly. And then we want to actually now swing that text around so it's sort of roughly 45 degrees. So what we should do now is go up to edit, down to transform, across to rotate, one click there, and that actually activates the rotation tool. And just basically move your mouse over the top of the document, and you'll see that you get 2 arrows there on a rotation. So you just hold that down, grab one of the corners, and literally just pull it round. Yeah, and you can see that's roughly 45 degrees there. Just looking at the handles, leave go, up to the check mark, click that, and there we have it. Now that is actually a little bit out there, so as you can see the G is sort of disappearing out of the limits of the document itself. So click on text, just highlight that text again, and we'll just pull that in slightly. We're on 12, we'll drop it down to say 11, maybe 10. Let's have a look. 10. That's probably about it. Okay, that's as near as, damn it. Let's try a little bit less, in fact. Let's go down to 9. There we are. Much more like it. So the actual text is now within the parameters of the document itself. Now don't forget, you can actually keep on fooling around with that text just to make sure it's dead central. You know, just until you're happy with it anyway. I mean, I'm quite happy with the way it is there now, so we can move on. Now there are 2 ways we can do this. If you remember, we're working on 2 layers. So our top layer is the text, our blog, and that is in obviously red. We can actually colorize the actual background below that if we wish, which does mean that we'll be stuck with that color. Now what I like to do is create an actual transparent layer underneath the wording, and then we'll save the whole document as a pattern that we can drop into any other document. We can then create yet another layer below that and colorize that layer instead, and that does mean that we've got a choice of colors later on. Now don't worry if that sounds a bit complex at the moment, it's pretty straightforward and I'll show you exactly how it's done.